What's up everyone, I'm CallumOnToast, and in today's video I'm going to be showcasing a triple shiny shadow team in the Open Great League with a few move updates that you might have forgotten about. Maybe not so much the Venusaur with Sludge, but potentially you might have forgotten about Flame Wheel on Alola Marowak, and I reckon you definitely forgot about Sableye gaining access to Drain Punch. This is because Drain Punch is one of the worst moves in the entire game, and it was added to a bunch of different Pokemon for no reason other than to make it harder to get the actual moves that you want to use on these Pokemon. It costs 40 energy, it boosts up the user's defense with every use, which is quite nice, but it only deals 20 damage. Even Bubble Beam deals more damage than that. And actually, the other day, for the question of the day, I asked you guys what the worst move update was for this season, and the fact that not a single person mentioned Drain Punch being added to 10 different Pokemon's move pools shows just how forgettable that update was. Now, could this mean Drain Punch gets a buff next season? Well, I definitely hope so. But anyways, with that being said, let's just get into the question of the day. If you could give any charge attack a significant buff next season, which attack would you choose and why? Let me know in the comment section down below, and with that being said, let's get into the battles now. I should go into the first battle, leading shiny Shadow Venusaur into Talonflame. Of course, this is not a great matchup for me. I'm going to go for one Vine Whip, swap into my Sableye. Unfortunately, met with a Florges. Now, the opponent doesn't know I'm running Drain Punch here, so I'm going to go for the bait. And the opponent actually knows shields, which I thought was really surprising. I'm now firing off Foul Play. Foul Play also resisted, but it does substantially more damage there. The opponent is still going to be forced to throw. Boosting up my defense there does mean that the opponent cannot commit to a full farm down. However, it still doesn't really help me out that much. Venusaur can come in completely all the energy, unless they were running Psychic, which would be very unlikely, but they do reach yet another charge move. So, of course, Venusaur, I have to sponge the damage. I'm now swapping out straight away into Marowak, and unfortunately just being triple hard countered so far, but Shadow Alola Marowak hits very hard. Hex does decent damage. We drop the defense there with the Shadow Bone, and now we actually have some play. Of course, I'm going to shield the Hydro Cannon. I'm going to look to throw on CMP here, and of course, the opponent will be looking to shield, but I recognize the opponent's switch clock will be coming up after they fire off this Hydro Cannon, so I feel like they will go for the combo play, meaning I'm also going to swap out, throw the charge move straight away. Sludge able to win CMP up against the Talonflame, dealing big damage in the process, and even if the opponent undercharges here, Fly probably still gets the KO anyways. We can get a full Hex farm down, and I can actually just commit to a full farm down up against the Blastoise as well, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG to opponent there, into the next battle. We're going to see a Primeape in the lead. So, my entire team does okay into Primeape here. Of course, going to resist the Karate Chop damage. The opponent doesn't even farm up to a potential Ice Punch, which means I can very comfortably no-shield there. They're going to Safe Swap into Corviknight. Now, you might be wondering, why didn't I just come in with the Marowak? Well, of course, firstly, Sand attacks are going to hit for super effective damage, and the threat of a payback means that they probably will grab my shields. However, Sableye can come in. They don't get the boost at the first use, so now I'm going to no-shield once again. They go for another Air Cutter there, but we can reach a second Foul Play. Now, in this situation, there's really no need to go for Drain Punches. They do end up double shielding, so actually would have been in a situation where Drain Punch would have been quite useful for me. Basically, the only times when Drain Punch should be thrown is when you can pretty much guarantee you're going to grab a shield from the opponent. But here, we're going to go for Shadow Bone. Shadow Bone does big damage, and I can fire off a second Shadow Bone. And at this point, Shadow Bone will be enough to get the KO there. And let's see what they want to do. They're going to come back in with the Corviknight, and all I have to do is make sure the opponent doesn't catch a Flame Wheel onto their Primeape. They swap back into Primeape. We've got a Sludge already banked on the Venusaur. We also just banked a Flame Wheel for that Corviknight. They can come back in here. They can fire off the charge move, but it doesn't really matter. Assuming I can throw the charge move as soon as I come in here, and we don't get one turn lag, we can go straight for the Flame Wheel, and of course, Flame Wheel gets the KO there, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG to opponent there, into the next battle. You can see Shadow Venusaur into a Cradily. Now, this is a bit of an awkward matchup for me. I have two Pokemon in the back that are going to resist the acid damage. However, it's quite difficult swapping into a Pokemon up against Cradily, because they're very likely just going to stay in and fire off a Rock Tomb. So here, I'm going to shield the first move, and now I will go for another Frenzy Plant. I'm going to throw this immediately here, making sure I don't even throw on CMP. Frenzy Plant grabs a final shield, and at this point, I think I will just let Venusaur go down. Rock Tomb gets gets the KO there. I'm going to come in with my Marowak, but I'm not certain if by the time I've thrown 4 hexes, if a Shadow Bone will get the KO. So I actually choose not to throw a charge move. Instead, gonna look to overfarm. Rock Tomb, gonna debuff my attack there. I'm gonna go for 1 hex, throwing on good timing, firing off the Shadow Bone. Shadow Bone puts them into 1 more hex, farm down range, and they're gonna have a Azumarill in the back, so not ideal for me, but I swap into Sableye, and here I'm gonna go straight for a Drain Punch. Now, you might be wondering, why are you going for Drain Punch here? Well, a single foul play doesn't get the KO, but I thought maybe Drain Punch allows me to live a Bone Club. However, it actually doesn't matter as the opponent throws on CMP, they lose CMP, and now the opponent, if they commit to an aggressive farm down with those bubbles, I believe I'm probably going to reach 2 more foul plays here. So even though I've only got resisted damage, I'm going to put them into range where a single Shadow Bone will get the KO. So foul play number 2, gonna connect. Now we can come in, snipe with that Shadow, Alola Marowak, and of course, Shadow Bone does get the KO from that range, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG to opponent there into next battle. We can see Shadow Venusaur into Corviknight. Of course, not a great matchup for me. Going to be safe swapping into Sableye, and unfortunately, met with a Dunsparce. Now, of course, we've got fighting coverage here, but you can see Drain Punch doesn't really do much damage. Potentially, what I could have done is shielded the first move, gone for a second Drain Punch, and then maybe that allows me to live 2 draw runs there, but actually, probably not. Either way, I'm going to go for a foul play here. Foul play is going to connect. It does a lot more damage. Honestly, if we went straight foul play, maybe I could have flipped this matchup here in the 2-shield scenario, whereas now, unfortunately, I can only win this if the opponent does obviously just let this move go through, and the opponent's actually going to allow me to get switch advantage, but they come back in with the Corviknight. They will overfarm just slightly, fire off the Air Cutter, and Air Cutter also gets them the boost. Now, at this point, we're not in a great position whatsoever. Honestly, I couldn't remember how much they overfarmed in the lead, so I do shield there. That is a mistake. They get a second boost, but potentially they might have forgotten about Flame Wheel. So Flame Wheel connects. It does big damage, but they've got Shadow for Alligator in the back, and even if they don't have access to Ice Beam here, doesn't really matter. They've got 2 shields, well, obviously now 1 shield, but they can outpace me to back-to-back charge moves anyways. I fire off the Sludge, I grab the final shield, and we are making this look a lot closer than it actually is, but the opponent goes for the Ice Beam, getting the KO there. They can go for a Hydro Cannon as well, and of course, Hydro Cannon, super effective. Gonna be taking out my Shadow, Alola Marowak there, and unfortunately, I do lose that game. But GG's opponent there into the next battle, another Talonflame in the lead. So once again, safe swapping into Sableye, and the opponent is going to bank some energy before swapping into Furret. Now here, I'm going to go for the Drain Punch once again, super effective, and this should mean that I live a Trailblaze. However, I don't know if that really helps me or not. Gonna go for the foul play there, and once again, you can see if I just went straight foul play there, 2 foul plays basically puts them into Shadow Claw farm down range, whereas since I went for Drain Punch there, that is not the case. So at this point, I'm gonna come in with the Venusaur. We are going to actually swap and catch the charge move onto my Marowak. Now, of course, they are boosted, but Swift is double resisted, and their final Pokemon is going to be a Clodsire, which is absolutely fine with me. Now, of course, if I had access to Bone Club is super effective, but Shadow Bone is a much better move anyways, and Shadow Bone actually does the same damage as Flame Wheel. Both are neutral, but Shadow Bone does, of course, have a chance to debuff the opponent's defense. So I'm just going to go straight Shadow Bone in any neutral situations. Shadow Bone grabs a shield there, and I'm actually able to reach yet another Shadow Bone up against the Clodsire. Shadow Bone is going to get the KO. They come back in with the Furret, and I'm actually going to snipe with the Venusaur. Works out perfectly for me. They come back in with the Talonflame. I can go for 2 Vine Whips, fire off a Sludge. Sludge gonna connect, and at this point, I should just be committing to a full fast move farm down, but just in case the opponent is going to throw some energy here, I might as well put them into range where we can just throw a charge move, but actually we didn't have the move banked anyway, so at this point, I can just safely shield up the fly. 1 Hex gets the full farm down, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's opponent into the next battle. We can see Shadow Sizzle in the lead. So, Venusaur not having a great time in these lead matchups. We're going to say swapping into Sableye. And, of course, I'm going to shield this charge move. The opponent going to go for the Night Slash. They're now going to swap into Marowak. But, unfortunately, they don't really need to shield a foul play anyway, so I go for the Drain Punch. That does not help me. If anything, that actually gives them more farm in this matchup, which is definitely not what I want. Foul play, once again, okay, we do actually get a simultaneous KO there. That is kind of strange that the opponent allowed for that to happen, but we're going to come in with Marowak. They're going to come in with their final Pokemon, a Goodra. It was a 50-50 there, whether we came in with the Venusaur or not, and unfortunately, for us, it backfires, and we can swap back into the Venusaur, fire off a Frenzy Plant, grabbing a shield shield from the opponent, but it doesn't really help me. They fire off the Night Slash. We come back in. I'm going straight for the Shadow Bone here. I realize Shadow Bone is going to be enough damage to get the KO anyways, so I might as well try and fish for a debuff there to their defense, but the opponent should just be able to go for a Night Slash, swap back into Goodra, fire off an Aqua Tail, and whilst we might just barely tank an Aqua Tail, Shadow Bone will not get the KO, so there's no point throwing there. Instead, I allow them to Dragon Breath, farm me down, and unfortunately, I do lose that game. But GG's up on there into next battle. Much better lead matchup for the Venusaur, and the opponent choosing to stay in here, so potentially very weak to Venusaur in the back. The opponent's going to Safe Swap into a Galarian Corsola, so I'm going to go straight for a Frenzy Plant here. Probably should have just banked the energy, as we do have a great answer in Sableye, but now I'm going to no shield this, presumably, and then just commit to a full Shadow Claw farm down. Now, the opponent I'm expecting to come back in with the Dedenne, but no, they actually come in with a Toedscrawl. Toedscrawl, a little bit awkward for me, but I can go for back-to-back foul plays here. This time, we don't make the mistake of going for a Drain Punch first, because that just doesn't really help me. I think if Drain Punch was more like Obstruct, where it also debuffed the opponent's defense, maybe it would have more play, but honestly, only boosting up your own defense and dealing such little damage just doesn't really help. But anyways, we're going to shield up the Wrap here, fire off a Frenzy Plant, and then I realize if they're on Wrap, they probably have C-Bomb on Wrap, in which case we completely wall the energy. So we swap into Mara, we actually force them to swap back into their Dedenne. I'm definitely just going to shield the Parabolic Charge, go for 1 Hex, fire off the Shadow Bone. Shadow Bone actually might not get the KO now after the boost to their defense, and so we actually leave with a Flame Wheel, and of course, I'm going to throw this straight away, taking no risk whatsoever. Flame Wheel gets the KO there, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up on there into the next battle. I can see Shiny Shadow Venusaur into an Empoleon. So, of course, this is a neutral-ish matchup, but they will outpace me to those Drill Pecks, which is certainly not ideal. I'm going to shield the first move here. I'm now going to look to overfarm, and I will fire off a Frenzy Plant just before they reach another Drill Peck. Now, here I'm expecting the opponent maybe to overfarm by 1, but no, they don't do that. Otherwise, of course, I would have tried to make a catch there, but they fire off another Drill Peck, and once again, I'm going to throw just before they are reaching that next Drill Peck, and this time around, I am going to swap out straight away, and Shadow Sableye able to make the catch there, and also get a Shadow Claw through as I swap, but unfortunately, met with a Wigglytuff. Now here, of course, both charge moves are resisted. Foul play, going to do, well, actually, Drain Punch is neutral damage there, but it would have done less damage anyways. Now, I'm actually going to come in with my Shadow Alola Marowak here, because they would have outpaced me to a Swift just barely up against my Venusaur. So, of course, Icy Wind is going to hit for resisted damage. Here, I make a big mistake. I thought I had more energy there. I mean, I realized they were going to outpace me the first time to that Swift, so I did have a good idea of how much energy I had. But anyways, we're going to come back in. Somehow they get the Mud Slap through as they throw a fast move and swap out there, which doesn't make any sense. And unfortunately, that's going to cost me the game. I needed to overfarm there as they still had Empoleon and Wigglytuff in the back. And unfortunately, I do lose that game. But GG's to that trainer. Into the next battle, we're going to see a Shadow Kanto Marowak in the lead. So, of course, a good matchup for me, but I am taking neutral damage from the Mud Slaps. They then swap into Lapras, another good matchup for me, but again, taking super effective fast move pressure, so I will be grabbing a shield advantage and then swapping into my Sableye. Now, you might think that Drain Punch is the right play here, as of course, it is going to boost up my defense. It hits for super effective damage, but it just doesn't really put them into farm down range. However, foul play, I can now shield once, commit to a full Shadow Claw farm down, and they won't reach another Sparkling Aria. So we get the farm down there. They're going to come back in with the Marowak, and maybe I could have gone for Drain Punch this time around, but foul play, not going to be shielded. If I went for Drain Punch, I probably don't quite get to another charge move anyways, but now we come in with the Venusaur. I'm hoping to tank this just barely, but no, Bone Club gets the KO there. We come in, I believe the opponent probably banked the charge move there, but they swap into Primeape and they throw on alignment. That is huge for me. Rage Fist, super effective, but of course these Karachi Chops, they are double resisted, and because they throw on alignment, I'm going to reach back-to-back Shadow Bones before they get to another Rage Fist, meaning I've still got a shield, so even if they do have a Bone Club, doesn't matter, we get the full Hex farm down, just barely surviving a single Mud Slap, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up on there into the next battle. I can see Charger Bug in the lead. So, of course, both hitting for resisted fast through pressure, and Sludge and X-Scissor are both going to hit for neutral damage, going to deal decent damage here. Sludge, going to be no shielded, and at this point, the opponent is going to throw after 4 Volt Switches. They go for the X-Scissor. We can actually throw on CMP, And we are going to force CMP tie, grab a shield advantage. At this point, I think I'm just going to let Venusaur go down. Now I'm going to come in with my Shadow Marowak, and I will be shielding here just in case they're running Crunch here. Discharge, not a great move, so it wouldn't do too much damage in this situation. But I shield, I get the farm down. They're going to come in with a Dugong, so I'm going straight for Shadow Bone here. Unfortunately, Dugong is very bulky, and we do not drop the defense, meaning, unfortunately, a second Shadow Bone won't quite get the KO. So I'm going to look to try and catch a potential drill run onto Sableye. Doesn't work out. They come in with a Shadow Fortress, and here I make a huge mistake. I go for Drain Punch, expecting to grab the final shield, but we don't get the shield there, and boosting up my defense doesn't really help me that much because I'm actually just giving them more farm with those Bug Bites. They commit to the full farm down, and yep, okay, they shield up the foul play there. We're going to come in, shield the charge move. The opponent going to go for a Sand Tomb bait there. I need to overfarm, and unfortunately, it's going to be game over as the opponent already at the energy for the Rock Tomb, and I end up losing that game. So there you can see, having Drain Punch actually definitely a hindrance in that battle. If we didn't have it, of course, we go straight for foul play, and we would have done a lot more damage, potentially put them into farm down range for the Marowak. But either way, GG to our trainer into the next battle, and I'm going to see a repeat lead here of the Charger Bug. This time, I'm actually going to swap out and catch a double resisted X-Scissor onto my Shadow Marowak. Unfortunately, this time around, met with a Mud Slap Gastrodon. Here, I tried to force a CMP tie with the Water Pulse, but the opponent, very smart, choosing just to go for a full farm down there, but I do drop that defense, which is quite nice for me. Of course, Vine Whip's going to hit for huge damage anyways, but since they've been debuffed in their defense, going to deal even more damage here. I shield the first one just in case they had Earth Power, but they go for back-to-back body slams, and the opponent is eventually going to swap back into Charger Bug. I'm not going to allow them to reach another charge move here, so Sludge gets the KO. They're going to come in with a second Mud Slapper, and this is a tricky situation. So, of course, I'm going to shield this up here. I'm guaranteed to grab the shield, so I will go for the Drain Punch this time. However, I'm still going to be outpaced to the next charge move. And whilst, yes, I'm boosting up my defense, that does not help Sableye, as Sableye won't be tanking a Bone Club from this range. But the opponent swaps back into Gastrodon just to be farmed down there. And I can't even talk right now. The opponent throws the game there. I live with 1 HP and a Dream. We come out with the Frenzy Plant loaded, and we take out the Marowak to take that game. So, GG's up in there into the next battle. Worst lead I could possibly see with this team, but the opponent, I think they just misclicked there. That must have been the case, because that is not an answer to a shiny Shadow Sableye safe swap. And now, honestly, we've got a lot more play. The opponent also doesn't throw straight away either. Look to throw on good timing, allowing me to grab a shield, then get the full KO, and still reach a foul play into the Fearow coming back in. So foul play, grabs a shield there. I'm now going to swap straight away into Marowak, of course, expecting these drill runs or even drill pet going to do a decent amount of damage here. So I will just double shield, hoping the opponent will stay in, and maybe hoping the opponent won't expect a Flame Wheel. So going straight for it here. Of course, all shields are down on the opponent's end. Flame Wheel, big damage, doesn't quite put them into farm down range, but their final Pokemon going to be a Quagsire, and this game is now over. Shadow Bone, big damage, once again drops the defense there. We can come in with the Venusaur. This is not enough energy for a Stone Edge, just the Mud Bomb, and we can actually go for a resisted Vine Whip farm down, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up on there into the next battle, Shadow Venusaur into Shadow Talonflames. Of course, once again, not a great lead matchup. Once again, going to go for one Vine Whip, swap into Sableye, and again met with a Furret now. Actually, as I was doing these battles, I was watching a Dan Ottawa video where he features this exact team with Furret as the safe swap, and then Gastrodon as the closer, which unfortunately is just a complete hard counter to my team here. But we're able to go for the Drain Punch, and because we do actually tank that, and I reach a foul play. But again, foul play doesn't quite get the KO there. So I'm going to come in with the Venusaur, again looking to catch a Swift, which is double resisted here, but if it is the Gastrodon in the back, there's just no way back for us, unfortunately. I can look to throw on CMP. This time, the opponent does actually throw straight away here, so Shadow Bone, going to be no-shielded. I kind of need to grab a shield there, unfortunately. They go for a Body Slam, they undercharge that. I'm actually not throwing any moves at all because I need more farm with the Venusaur, but the opponent still has 2 shields here, and you're actually going to see just 2 Incinerates from that Shadow Talonflame will be enough damage to get a full farm down. So no point throwing a Sludge here. Of course, they get the full farm down, and unfortunately, I do lose that game. So, GG's up in there, and also congrats to Dan Ottawa, as he has now become a YouTuber where people will just blindly follow the exact team that they post, like literally 10 minutes after the video gets posted. You see that a lot with like Yonkers teams and Home Slice Henry teams, but not so much with Dan Ottawa, so I guess he'll be feeling happy about that. But anyways, we're going to go for a Shadow Bone, get the KO here, and the opponent obviously going to come back in with the Shadow Golurk. I'll put them into range where 2 fast moves from either Pokemon should get the full farm down. I'm actually going to come in with Sableye. I'm expecting it to be... Well, actually, I don't know what it's going to be in the back here. Maybe Double Fairy, but no, it's actually a Fire, which is not ideal for me. Again, going for Drain Punch first, and I don't know if this really helps me, but potentially, since I've gone for Drain Punch here, the opponent might no-shield the next move, expecting another Drain Punch, in which case, that is going to give me the win, as now we fire off the Foul Play, and Foul Play is not going to be shielded. It does so much more damage. We get a simultaneous KO, and now, of course, one more fast move, gets the farm down up against the Golurk, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG to opponent there into the next battle, and I believe this is the final battle of this video. Once again, leading into an awful core breaker to this team. I stayed in just in case they were on Snarl, but nope, they're on Air Slash, so I swap into my Shadow Sableye. They go for a Foul Play here, and the opponent is eventually going to swap out into a Marowak. And once again, I'm going for Drain Punch here. I'm trying to make this move work, but they're never going to shield there. I don't know why I didn't just go straight for double Foul Plays there. Of course, once again, I also give the opponent slightly more farm as I boost up my defense. Honestly, Drain Punch was so bad, but I also played very poorly with it. But either way, we're going to no-shield the first move. I kind of need to shield the next move here because Marowak is going to struggle up against the Mandibuzz as well. So we shield up the Bone Club. I'm going to go for a farm down here. I'm 2 away from back-to-back Sludges, so going to go for 1 Vine Whip, fire off the first one, and do the exact same thing a second time here before swapping into my Marowak. Now, Sludge number 2 is actually going to be shielded by the Mandibuzz, and now we come in with the Marowak, but the opponent is already at the Foul Play. I shield that up there. The opponent is going to swap eventually into Florges, and now we can go for Shadow Bone. I'm at back-to-back charge moves here. Chilling Water is going to hit for super effective, but it is non-stab. It's also not the hardest hitting move ever, and potentially, if I can make a catch here onto my Venusaur, we could still have some play. So I swap. I'm able to catch there. Switch Clock just barely coming up in time. Chilling Water gets the KO. We commit to a full Hex farm down, but they're not in range for a Flame Wheel to get the KO. So what I need is for the opponent to shield a Shadow Bone and to get the debuff, and I actually get neither of them there. So unfortunately, the opponent can just shield up the Flame Wheel, and we do end up losing that final game. So that's going to be it for today's video. If you did enjoy it, please make sure you leave a like, leave a comment letting me know, and as well, don't forget to respond to the question of the day if you haven't done so already. And if you want to see more content like this in the future, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on post notifications. That way you'll be notified whenever I upload a new video. Now, if you want to take your support to the next level, you can become a channel member with perks including early access to new videos, shoutouts at the end of each video, custom loyalty badges, and custom emojis to use in the comments of every video. I want to say a massive thank you to everyone that has become a channel member already. Your support is greatly appreciated. And with that being said, thank you so much for watching today's video, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.